Under the shimmer of every so-called golden age, a quieter truth whispers beneath the surface. Wealth has never truly been safe. Not for emperors wrapped in silk, nor merchants weighed down by silver. Every age that thought itself secure eventually discovered how fragile prosperity can be. Empires rise like sunlit palaces, and just as easily collapse into dust. Revolutions sweep away dynasties. Markets that promised eternity vanish overnight. Yet through it all, a certain kind of person always survives, the ones who understand that money is not the goal, but the weapon. From the marble halls of Rome to the mirrored towers of Wall Street, the game has never really changed. The rich do not simply earn wealth, they engineer it to endure. To them, coins, land, or digital balances are merely disguises for something far more powerful: leverage, protection, survival. While the masses cling to the illusion of safety, trusting the laws, the banks, the promises, the elite quietly learn a darker lesson. The system was never designed to protect everyone. Only those who learn to step outside it truly hold power when the storms arrive. So the question isn't how they became rich. History has told that story 1,000 times. The question, the one that still matters in every century, is how they stayed rich when everything else was falling apart. To uncover the origins of this secret art of survival, we have to travel back, far back, to a time when wealth wasn't numbers on a screen or paper in a vault. 4,000 years before Christ, in the dusty brilliance of Mesopotamia, power lived in clay tablets and temple walls. The first rich men weren't hedge fund managers or monarchs with crowns. They were merchants and priests who understood something profound. To protect your wealth, you must make it sacred. In cities like Ur and Lagash, silver wasn't merely stored, it was entangled. Temples became the earliest banks, gods, the first guarantors. A merchant could lend to a king through the temple's treasury, and even the ruler himself would hesitate to seize that wealth. To violate the temple's accounts was to offend heaven. And so, religion became the first fortress of finance. Across the desert sands, the pharaohs of Egypt refined this logic. Their wealth was not coin, it was the Nile itself. Land, grain, stone, and water, the tangible lifeblood of civilization. Gold glimmered in Nubian mines, but real value lay in harvest and soil. The elite learned to anchor their riches in what the state could not easily steal. Even if dynasties changed, the land remained, feeding both people and power. These early masters of money were not hoarders, they were strategists of permanence. They understood that in a world ruled by chaos and kings, the only true safety was control over what others could not replace. As civilization matured, wealth learned to move. By the 5th century before Christ, the merchants of Greece had discovered a radical truth: mobility is protection. In the bustling ports of Athens and Corinth, fortune no longer sat locked behind city walls. It sailed across the Aegean on the decks of cargo ships. A clever trader understood that a war, a coup, or a jealous ruler could erase a lifetime's riches. So, he spread his assets like seeds on the wind: deposits in distant city-states, partnerships in foreign ports. If Athens burned, Rhodes would still stand. If one empire crumbled, another awaited. This was diversification before spreadsheets, the first offshore banking, built not on secrecy but distance. Then came Rome, and with it, the perfection of wealth as a weapon. Senators, generals, and the famously rich equestrian class understood the stakes of power all too well. A wrong alliance could cost not just influence, but everything. So they built invisible armor, property scattered across provinces, loans to foreign kings, contracts for tax collection backed by the might of Roman legions. Even as dictators rose and fell, Sulla, Caesar, Augustus, their fortunes endured. They didn't just diversify investments, they diversified jurisdictions. Some hid gold and jewels in distant estates, others invested in empires within empires. Their goal was simple: survive the politics, outlast the rulers. By the time Rome's eagles darkened the world's horizon, the rich had already learned the ultimate rule: to stay powerful, you must never keep all your power in one place. When the Roman Empire crumbled, wealth did not vanish, it simply went underground. As cities fell and emperors faded into myth, the richest families quietly shifted their treasures from palaces to fortresses, from public coffers to private vaults. They invested not in governments that could fail, but in fortified estates, private armies, and networks that answered only to them. When the empire's treasury lay empty, these families still controlled the land, the harvest, and the loyalty of men. The state had died, but their wealth endured. By the medieval age, a new guardian emerged, the church. In Europe's shadowed cathedrals, faith became finance. Kings might seize a noble's land, but few dared to confiscate property donated to God. Families funneled fortunes into monasteries, where abbots, often loyal relatives, protected them behind divine law. It was the earliest form of a trust, a spiritual safe deposit box. Then came the Renaissance, and with it, a revolution of ink and paper. The Medici of Florence turned finance into an art form, inventing a network of bills of exchange that made gold obsolete. A fortune could now move invisibly across borders, recorded only in ledgers and letters. A Medici might lose everything in one city and still be rich in another, his wealth alive in numbers no king could see. By the 16th and 17th centuries, in Venice, Amsterdam, and London, the elite learned one final trick: tie their fortunes to the power that threatened them. They funded wars, bought government debt, and became too essential to destroy. The crown could no longer confiscate their wealth, because their wealth was the crown's lifeline. Across every age, the pattern is unmistakable. Wealth survives through control and distance. Control over resources that retain value no matter who rules. Distance between your fortune and the grasping hands of any single system. The ancients understood this instinctively. Land, trade routes, grain, gold, each was more than property. They were anchors in a storm of shifting empires. And yet, thousands of years later, most people still make the same mistake. We trust banks, currencies, and governments as if they are eternal. We forget that every stable age eventually turns unstable, that security exists only until the next shock. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes in ways that should make us uneasy. Today, the battlefield has changed, but the game is identical. A few keystrokes can freeze a lifetime of savings. Inflation erodes wealth quietly, like termites through wood. Digital markets rise and collapse faster than armies once marched, and as nations weaponize finance through sanctions, capital controls, and surveillance. The modern elite are once again doing what their ancestors did, moving their wealth beyond reach, diversifying across borders, assets, and systems. They are not breaking rules, they are remembering lessons. Because the true art of wealth is not in gaining it, but in keeping it alive when everything else is dying. It is knowing, as the Sumerians knew, that money inside the system is never truly yours. It is seeing, as the Medici saw, that influence is a better shield than gold. And it is acting before a crisis comes to build distance between your fortune and the fire. In every century, most people learn this truth too late. But a few, those who listen to history, quietly prepare. And when the next collapse arrives, they won't just survive. They'll inherit what's left. Empires rise, currencies collapse, systems change their rules. But the game, it's always the same. Those who understand history don't just survive it, they use it. Subscribe and join me as we uncover the financial truths hidden inside history's greatest collapses. Because in a world that forgets its past, only those who remember it stay free.